Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. State-owned power utility Eskom is being supplied with a wide variety of coals, most of which are the dregs, resulting in low efficiencies and high maintenance. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Eskom is being supplied with some of the worst possible grades of coal, leading to very low efficiencies. Could this be one of the reasons why we're currently experiencing load shedding?
It could very well be. And, Eskom has always been regarded as the coal dustbin. I mean, this has been the business plan from, the 70s and 80s, that, you'd mine your coal, it would come out of your mine on a conveyor belt, unwashed, you'd send it into Eskom, and it would be their baby, and it wouldn't be the coal that you used for export. But since India's come on the scene, it's a different story, because India also likes this low-grade coal that we used to send off to Eskom as a tradition in South Africa from a coal mining point of view. Mm-hmm. Now people are giving Eskom, the dregs, because they know that there's a market in India and it's growing voraciously. And so this is causing a lot of problems now with the actual burning of the coal. Now, it's in an era where we want to have efficient power stations, because efficiency equals less carbon emission. And, the world over, people are trying to have a lower carbon situation. But if you carry on with this low-grade coal going through its motion in the power stations, in these older power stations, you're actually putting more CO2 into the atmosphere. So you're actually defeating this whole move we've got in South Africa for, wind energy and solar energy and everything, because we probably never put more CO2 into the atmosphere in our power stations in Mpumalanga than we're doing now. And the complaint is, coming up from the symposium that took place at the South African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy this week, where Rosemary Falcon presented a very good paper, on clean coal possibilities. It hinges on greater efficiency. That's the way we've got to clean up our act, clean up the Power Station Act, the burning of coal, which is unloved in the world. People want to move away from it. But if you're going to do it, you should do it in the right way. We seem to be going in the complete opposite direction, because Eskom is having to contend with low-grade coals. A lot of the specifications drawn up some time ago, where this wouldn't have happened. You didn't have this demand from India. Now all of a sudden, the deterioration is so bad. It's the coal seems not even fit for the dustbin anymore, and Eskom's getting it.
It seems a little strange, though, that we would export some of that coal when we ourselves need it so desperately.
That's the thing. It's a situation of what do we need? We also need foreign exchange. So there's a balance here. And, people want to export because suddenly there's a market for this lower grade coal. And so they're looking at an opportunity of balancing it out and saying, well, we can still give India this coal, but, the dregs will pass on to Eskom, which is a specialist in burning very low grade coal. But it's getting to a point now where if we have heavy rains like we do now, you end up with a mishmash. And then the coal is so waterlogged and it's so bad they can't even put it through the system, and we are having load shedding as we sit here. And that's the consequences. There's got to be a balance. People have got to look after the exports because we know foreign exchange, but they've got to play the game with their specifications going into Eskom. Otherwise they're going to hurt themselves and all of us, because we're all in the same boat.
Is South Africa currently producing more lower-grade coal than higher-grade coal? Is that why they're looking to export some of it?
Well, look, I think they've still got their different grades of coal. There's a wide spectrum of coal, and there are different types of coal. But it's a temptation if you've got a customer now that's prepared to take this low-grade coal that only Eskom wanted in the past. And, they can give you hard currency, and it helps foreign exchange and helps your business and it helps the country. The temptation is to go along with it, but at the same time they must realize, they've got to look after us here as well.
Now, coal researcher Professor Rosemary Falcon says she's concerned about moving some of the coal from the Waterberg to Mpumalanga. What's the story there? You
see, the story is that the main idea is that where we get our coal from in this central basin, Witbank, is depleting. The next big source is going to be in the Waterberg. But the central basin in Witbank and all those traditional areas is well fed with rail. the Waterberg isn't. But we see that that is being stepped up at the moment. So they thought, not only is it good for the Limpopo to have this rail network, because you can also link with Botswana, but that Waterberg coal can now not only go on the export route to Richards Bay, but some of it can be dropped off at these various power stations. But what Rosemary Falcon is saying is, watch out for that, because coals are different. And what has been traditional in the past is that you built the power station on the coal field because you wanted the coal to be consistent, the coal that's coming from one field. But now with black economic empowerment coming in, coal is coming in trucks from all different points. And the actual equipment there is not being set up for this. You really need a fluidized bed type of combustion rather than what we've got. So big changes. So she's saying, look, you can't really just bring the coal from the Waterberg and think that you can pass it on, because coal isn't just coal. There's a different types of coal. So tests are now underway to see whether this coal can be burnt in power stations, in Mpumalanga. So it's coming from a different area, and they're testing at the moment to see.
What if it can't be? If
it can't be, we're going to have to say, well, what equipment do we need now to make sure that this can? And I'm sure that it's going to cost a lot of money.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And on that note, Eskom is in crisis. What are the plans to resolve this?
Well, I was just listening to Sipho and Cozy now speaking at Exoro, and a lot of the analysts, I don't know where they got this in their head, perhaps because we were having blackouts while the presentation was going on. That fortunately there was a generator set at the summer place where Exoro presented its results. But it only clicked in momentarily after load shedding took place. So
you're sitting in the dark.
You'd sit in the dark and they'd come back and they'd say, ooh, Eskom is watching, because Eskom is their biggest customer. But the insinuation from questions and from questioning by the analysts was that you're not telling us something. Eskom isn't paying you for coal because you've been ready to deliver the coal to Medupi, but Eskom are not ready to receive it, and therefore you're not getting paid for it. Well, they came on the record saying, no, every invoice that we put through to Eskom is being paid. So you almost get the feeling that people are beginning to get a bit concerned about the financial standing of Eskom, never mind, the fact that there are coal problems and all the rest. And we know that Eskom wanted a far bigger tariff increase than they're getting, and they have warned that this is not the most fantastically financially buoyant type of tariff. But, the assurances were given that they will be guaranteed 1.5 billion for that coal that they have mined, and it's ready to go to Medupi, but it's not ready to be received by Medupi. But they have been paid, and they say every invoice that they present on a monthly basis gets paid. And the analysts wanted to know, well, what are you guaranteed for 2014? And they said they've got a guarantee of 1.5 billion, and I think they already have been paid on this shortfall payment, as they call it, more than 2 billion. So, Eskom is paying its way. It's had a difficulty at Medupi, where there's been a lot of labour strife and technical problems. And this first unit that was supposed to be, producing electricity already hasn't come on. So therefore, it's not consuming coal, and therefore your coal supply is left with the coal, because the contract was for Exoro to have the coal at a certain date. They had it ready, but then Eskom wasn't ready. But Eskom is having to pay in advance. They will, all the coal will be used up. So there's no real crisis there. But another issue raised by Sipho and Cozy was that during this political year, they have been working hard, very hard behind the scenes with the politicians to smooth out this problem of strategic coal, because that creates a lot of worries. Like now, we need strategic coal because, the quality is so low that you need some assurance. Well, they want to be able to give Eskom the assurance and the government assurance that they'll get the coal. But at the same time, they want to say to the government, you also need to export because you need the foreign exchange. And if you look at our exports, between the iron ore and the coal, it's 40% of the total exports, from South Africa. So it's a very, very important player into the economy. And they say they believe that behind the scenes, they will make sure that they stop the market rattle, and that both parties will be served, the needs of South Africa will be served, and their need to export, is also served, because without that export revenue, they're actually unviable as coal operations. And that has always been the business plan that we've had, and they want to sustain it so that they can make sure there's a balance and that both parties get served, and that the government is satisfied that it doesn't have to be draconian with this particular law about being strategic coal and strategic platinum. They feel that they've discussed that to a point where there'll be no shocks.
Well, we watch the space.
We will do.
Thank you, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.